Hi there. Today we're going to do a Dutch trade as is my normal practice. We're using an automation process here, and on the right hand side you can see me selecting my two picks that I've already predetermined. So that's Wise Guy and Sleeping Satellite. The difference with this particular automation is I've added in or changed the green up process to take into account the number of runners. I did a demonstration video on that recently, and there's a download file available showing you a demonstration of that you're free to download and play around with. So this process needs to happen before the off, so the automation is assigned well in advance, at which point I can go in at any time and make those selections as long as they're made before the scheduled off time. At the scheduled off time, those two selections are then used where a small lay, as you can see at the right hand side there, of £1 at 1.01 is used and placed on each runner. Now the Fairbot automation Dutching process uses that to identify the runners involved in the subsequent Dutch. And that Dutch is submitted 3 seconds after those little lays are placed into the market. Now the new green up process, based on the number of runners, utilises those small lays as well. Essentially it checks to see any unmatched lay bets sitting at 1.01, counts the number of those that are sitting there, and from that the correct green up process fires, assuming of course that the corresponding trigger point is reached. Now in this particular race, since I've got two runners selected, the trigger point will be a £30 profit. As you can see, I'm using a £100 stake here for this particular race. So it's really just a case of waiting and see. Now I'm actually adding this audio on 2 days after the event, and at my age I can barely remember what I had for breakfast, so forgive me if I forget a few things as I'm watching this video play out. So whilst we're just letting the race run through, let me just run through the selection process for you. You've seen it many times. Essentially it's the same all the time. I check time form, I check Naps checker, and I keep an eye on the pre-race graphs and so on. Essentially what I'm looking for are runners that I think will shorten in price. So in time form I'm looking at the historical price record in running. I'm looking for any hints and tips that and comments that may be made that would suggest that a runner may run well. I also use Nap Checker just to check what the tipsters are saying, not as a definitive advice if you like, but it's really just another point in the curve to see if there's any sort of consensus, that type of thing. That's particularly useful in a large field because it saves me having to wade through lots of runners all the time, and I can quickly discount a few. As I said, I also keep an eye on the pre-race graphs. They can be useful, keeping in mind however that a pre-race steamer, it wouldn't be the first time that one of those has gone on to win the race, and conversely a pre-race drifter can easily win as well. So it's really just to give you some sort of indication of what you're looking at. Now as you watch the numbers bounce up and down as this race passes the halfway point, you'll see that the green up button there has been flashing from scratch all the way up to just about 20. So you could trade out at any time, and this is fairly common. But generally speaking, what you'll find is that the trigger point The higher the trigger point that you're looking for, almost by definition, means that the race has to run that bit further before that point is actually reached. In many ways that can be a good thing. You've all seen lots of screenshots and examples where the profit I've obtained is much greater than the trigger point, and that happens late on in races, especially sprint races, where one of my selections has left his move till late in the race and he's come charging through, and there's the green up just being triggered. The lay bet on Sleeping Satellite has been taken quickly. We're still waiting for the wise guy to come, and there it gets taken there. So we've got £31 across the board. And if we switch back to the automation, you'll see that the 2 runners rule, that's the one that's fired, which shows that that was working. And that's it. So an example of a different green up process to achieve the same ends. Okay guys, thanks very much for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.